Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports as Ordered. And you know I didn't come alone. I got with me the even kill. Born in Texas, raised in VA, representing everything New Jerusalem. He wants y'all to know there would be no America as we know it without New Jersey because they were the first state to sign the Bill of Rights. He is Mr. Logical.
That boy got a master's degree.
And that
boy got a master's degree talking like that.
Do not bring feelings to a fact fight. And you got me, your unorthodox statistician, going left so much you thought I was southpaw. You see it on the screen. I came up with the name Nanny Nichols. I am 2-5. Tonight, we're going to talk about picks, NFL, college. We're going to talk about conference championship clinching scenarios. And then, of course, we're going to start it off with Mr. Daniel Jones.
Poor Danny Dimes. It's not his fault. It's not. I'll keep it on. It's not his fault. We were just having a conversation in our pre-meeting about GMs kind of operating under public pressure for their decision making. Now, these are all well-educated men and women who are in these positions. They've been vetted. They talk directly to the owner. The owner's giving them like, hey, this is my checkbook. This is my number. I understand that. But all my years in the military, I remember I was having this conversation at work. You got to be able to explain the why. Sometimes it's like, hey, charge that hill. Gonna make this happen. And I will do the debrief later. But right now, I need you to go. I don't know how many people I can really count on one hand that was like, yo, I think 4 years, 160 for Daniel Jones was a good deal.
Right.
The timing was bad. Like we talked about it before. Saquon was out here begging for like $2 extra million for 2 years. Like I think Saquon wanted somewhere in the area of 22 to 24 for 2 years. And you're jerking him around for a whole year, and then he was back at it, waiting the franchise tag, and then you just out of nowhere, boom, news breaks, Danny Dimes 4 years, 160. And it's like you got a guy that's essentially begging you for $2 extra million, but somehow you find $160 million to give a guy who had one good year because the guy who wants $22 million was there. So he was put in a bad situation. It's very similar to teams that quarterbacks that get drafted number 1 overall. When you go into a situation where people expect you to be the savior, that's what we were talking about in the pre-meeting. But with that being said, he did still look a lot like a rookie quarterback too often. Like just too, like it just, you've been in the league too long for you to be airmailing wide open wide receivers in the NFL. It's one thing to miss a tight pass. It's one thing to miss long, like you got the deep post route and you see it and you get excited and you fire it long because you got a speed. So you got a Jamar Chase out there, you got Justin Jefferson, you got somebody that's really stretching the field, and you just overshoot it. It happens. But to be missing wide open guys in the middle of the field, two guys running dig routes, and one guy's running dig, one guy's running out. They're both 15 yards down the field, wide open, no DB anywhere. You haven't pulled the trigger yet, and the coach is losing his mind on the sideline. That was the problem.
Well, so Daniel Jones is not, like you said, without blame here. Like, I don't know. I've never been in an NFL locker room. So I don't know how much development is on the coach and how much development is on the player grasping concepts and becoming better. Daniel Jones, his rookie year, for example, fumbled 18 times as a rookie. Overall in his career, this is year 6, 50 career fumbles. Now, we know that the Giants didn't have the best offensive line by any means. We know that Daniel Jones has not had the best targets by any means. They drafted Jalen Hyatt last year. Hasn't worked out so far. They went out and got Malik Neighbors this year. They got Wan'Dale Robinson, who at one point this season was top 3 in the league in receiving yards. But it was because they had to force feed him because Malik Neighbors was out with a concussion. So the thing that stands out to me when I look at Daniel Jones today versus when he was younger is I see deer in the headlights. I see non-confidence. And I'm not even trying to be funny and do that thing, but to the point where I'm like, he might need to talk to a sports psychologist because he literally, he'll step back. He might have somebody open and he's literally like, should I throw it? Should I throw it? Should I throw it? And then by the time he throws it, he airmails it because, he's got to make up for the time he lost.
Because, and another thing we're talking about, generationally, you have pockets of time. Like if I can think back to like conversation with Pops, who's a Colts fan, yeah, like Johnny Unitas and Fran Tarkenton. You have like pockets of guys like, okay, at this time there was like 4 or 5 great guys, but then it was a window 4 or 5 more great guys, and then it was another window. But right now, I think we're in an era where we're so enamored with the measurables, either to the point where we'll lean on the extreme difference, like, yeah, Bryce Young is undersized, but he does all these so well. And then it's like Josh Allen is so big and strong, and Daniel Jones is Josh Allen's size. He should be able to do what Josh Allen does.
You know why Daniel Jones got drafted?
Bryce Young, because he looked and walked and talked like a Manning.
Because he went to a Manning camp. That's why he got drafted. Because he knew, just like you talk about, these coaches out here had a coffee with Sean McVay.
Yeah,
Daniel Jones was out here eating English muffins with the Mannings.
Yeah,
so
he fits he fits what you want. I mean, I think Eli, like I said, I've seen Peyton Manning in the airport and I walked past him.
Mm-hmm.
Huge guy, 6'5", 6'6". Eli, I think, is like 6'4". Daniel Jones was a more athletic version of Eli on the surface. Big arm, big tall kid, just ran a little more. He was like, okay, I'll pass the torch from Eli to him. But like you said, I don't know how much learning has occurred. Because you can tell what a guy like CJ Stroud, and he'll break down, like CJ Stroud was on he was on a podcast and he was breaking down a touchdown that he threw when he had a free blitzer off the offensive left side. So he's like, I know I'm supposed to go hot to the running back, but I saw that the safety at the goal line was a little wide, and my tight end was running a seam. So when I saw that, I knew that if this safety keeps going to his left, I'm gonna be able to get the tight end underneath. And he threw the ball. But like the way he broke, I mean, he had a bunch of other terminology, but the way he broke it down, like, listen, I know I'm supposed to throw this over here, but when I'm seeing over here, I know I can get this route open. I don't know if Daniel Jones does that. And that's why it looks like he's not a playmaker, because it's like, for instance, we talked about those fourth down plays against Dallas. They called hitch routes twice in the game, one for Wardell on each side. On the right side, early in the game, he threw it super quick. Didn't need to. It gets deflected because the defense didn't get run off. It was like he ran into the zone. The linebacker standing right there. He's like, knocked it down. So then they ran it to the other side for another 4th and 2 later in the game. The same thing happened. If he would have looked behind, Darius Slayton was wide open both times, running like a dig route. So you had a curl, you had like the hitch route underneath to hold the linebacker, and then you have the wide receiver coming on an end right behind it. Like, just wait a half a second. But it seems like this is a route, so I'm throwing it. And Brian Daboll was like, yo, look, there's people open. Stop throwing incomplete passes when people are wide open. And it's like to the point where it's like, how many times we got to sit in the meeting and I got to put the red dot on the dude? Like, listen, just hold the safety with your eyes by looking this way and then throw it here. That's all you got to do. And he probably just was like, I think he just never got it because he never looked like a person.
If you want to define Daniel Jones' career, all you have to do is go back to Thursday Night Football against Philadelphia when
He fell in open
ran
field.
about 60 yards and tripped over himself. That's Daniel
Looking
Jones in a
around.
nutshell.
What do you look like? He ran a faster time than Cam Newton at the combine. You think Cam Newton was looking behind him when he was in open field?
And the Giants
No.
this year didn't seem to use that part of his game, that element of his game. You know, like they have the rookie
He was coming
Tyrone.
off ACL surgery and
I know
back injury.
I know that ain't stopped Kyler Murray. You know, and you know, but also like going back to your point earlier.
But Kyler Murray's a playmaker.
Well, going back to your point earlier, when you were talking about how we're caught up in the measurables as a society. Yeah. We care about the measurables, and you know, get your statistician on because you always talk to me about Kyler Murray's high school record, you know, and what he did in college and all that. So even though he isn't Daniel Jones's stature, he just breeds winner. And you see the Cardinals right now, like they're not a contender, but look at him now.
Because he's undersized, he's also exceptional. I think the same thing with Bryce Young. He was, I think Mater Dei was probably number 1 or 2 his entire time. Mm-hmm. He was the quarterback for one of the most prestigious private schools in California that played national games. So you see, like Kyler Murray, 3 state championships in Texas. That's okay. That guy can make plays. He can make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, they got on him about his studying. The rumor was early in his career, he didn't study much. They put the clause in. All that information came out because he's a natural playmaker. Daniel Jones isn't a natural playmaker, but it doesn't seem like whatever he's studying, he applies.
Right.
Because I look at it like this. NFL, you play 17 games. Most of these guys are throwing about 30 or 40 passes a game. So boom, you go to 17 times 40. That's 680 passes. If you have a 4% touchdown ratio between your passes, you should get like 30. You should be around 30 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, give me like if I'm throwing the ball 680 times on a 100-yard field throughout the year, you should be somewhere in the range of 28 to 32 passing touchdowns.
Well, here you go. Right here, this season, he has 341 attempts. How many touchdowns do you think he got?
If I had to guess, I'm somewhere around 6 or 7.
He has 8. And you remember a couple of years ago, well, last year actually, when we first started Sports Reports as Ordered, you had made the argument like, hey, he's having a top 10 season. And you know what I mean? And I brought up, hey, look at how many 200-yard games he doesn't have. So looking at this season, for example, he's got 5 games under 200 yards this season, including a game under 100 yards. Yeah, granted, he had 99, but you know
that year that still counts. That year he also had 770 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns.
Right. Okay.
So that's the piece. That was Mark because I thought, okay, you can build on that. Like Daniel, lock this in. This is how well your season went. What did you learn? What can you bring forward? And then they didn't bring then they just lowball Saquon. So like I said, when these guys get lowballed, they're like my hamstring tight, I'm not playing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the thing. I thought that was gonna be their standard going forward. Getting their playmaker the ball in space and then allowing Daniel Jones to just do the read option. Get your 8 or 9 yards, get out of bounds, slide, but 770 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns. That's good. That's a good year for your if you got a running back that's splitting time.
Mm-hmm.
The second guy getting 770 and 7 touchdowns, you'll take that. If you have like Najee Harris getting you 1,000 yards and Jalen Ward getting you 77,
right?
You know,
so yards, 10 games this year. How many yards do you think Daniel Jones rushed for?
Rush 10 games, injury. I didn't see a lot of running. I'm gonna say about 212 yards,
265. You know, and that's the thing is that, like I brought up, like if you have a bad offensive line, sometimes you have to use that quarterback in that way if he's capable. Like I don't expect Matthew Stafford, you know, to take off and get 7 yards.
Not at all.
But Daniel Jones can do that. Why isn't he? Because Brian Daboll, in my opinion, is a really good coach. You know, he turned around. I mean, I ain't gonna say turn around, but before this season, he was partially responsible for Josh Allen's best season. And that's how he ended up with the Giants job in the first place. So there's a coach in there somewhere.
His talent is what caused the GM to make the moves that he made. Because I think sometimes these GMs kind of get enamored in their own psyche and their own intelligence. Keep the best team you can and worry about the money later. I mean, you're the New York Giants. You could raise the ticket prices $30.
Hey, Washington, it came out today. Washington's raising the ticket prices 11%.
You could do the same thing at MetLife Stadium, and people still going to show up.
It's New York. And if
New
Yorkers don't want to show up, guess what? The other team's fans will come too because they want to see New York.
Yeah, they're right there.
Or New Jersey.
You spend the weekend, the city's right across the river. It's right there.
Yeah, go hang out at Ellis Island or something, and
you'll get all the fandom, you'll get all the money back that you want. You can sell your $14 beers. Yes, $14 beers.
Hey, they had $13 beers at the Spurs game last night. You know, what I'm saying?
The going rate.
So, real quick before we wrap this up, is there a team or teams that you could see him ending up with? Because he's on waivers, so somebody has to try to get him.
All right. He's on waivers. More likely, I saw some earlier that the contract would probably dictate that he ends up going to free agency and they have to work out a different deal.
Right.
If I had Tennessee, I think Tennessee, I mean, you might be trading apples for apples at that point with Will Levis and Daniel Jones.
Well, they got Mason Rudolph. You know, is Daniel Jones better than him at this point?
I think they're all basically interchangeable.
Okay, fair enough.
They're all about the same size. They pretty much will throw the ball.
So I had a couple teams in mind. A lot of people have been A lot of people have been saying that Dallas would be a good spot. I don't see that. I don't see Dallas as a good spot.
I don't see Dallas as a good spot because how does that benefit him? If I'm his agent, it's like, you're going to go to Dallas where they have injuries all over the defense, like to their stars, like former All-Pro, Pro Bowl caliber defensive players aren't there. You're in the same boat as you were with the Giants, where if you don't move the ball and the defense isn't there and they get scored on, now you're throwing the ball and now you're to blame for the Dallas loss. Like, nah, I'm good.
Right. So here's a couple of teams that I thought of. You know, initially, my first thought, obviously, we always go there, was Vegas. You know, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell.
You want him to start, or you want to?
Well,
you're looking for a spot.
No.
You're his agent right now. You're his agent.
If I'm his agent, that's the only team right now. If I'm his agent, the Raiders are the only team that he could possibly start for before the end of the season right now.
I got one that popped in my head.
What?
Miami. I think going down to Miami, I wouldn't wish any ill will on Tua, but I could see him
upgrade over Skylar Thompson.
Tua takes a hit, takes a blindside sack that happens, and it's like you're precautionary. We're going to keep you out a week.
So I don't know if
and he gets a shot, and then he has a track team. Like, yo, just hit this drag route. Tyreek would do the rest.
So if he ends up on a team, finishes out the season on that team, but it was just, hey, we signed you for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I say Pittsburgh. Because both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson are on expiring contracts. I don't think you're bringing both of them back.
Don't do that to Mike Tomlin.
I don't think you're bringing both of them back.
Listen, everybody, and I was thinking about this earlier.
He's had some worse quarterbacks.
I think the brass in Pittsburgh looks at Mike Tomlin like, you know what? This guy can fix any attitude problem that comes out of whatever other organization because people respect him. He's a natural born leader. His charisma, his intelligence. We're going to take it. everybody don't need to go there. Like he don't need more Antonio Browns because Pickens needs to be on his way out. Because you like dog, you can't act like this every time you lose. Like stop it. Stop acting like a child. You're a professional. Like stop putting situations where your coach got to answer for your behavior. Lack of appreciate
Residente Pursuit Forever every other Wednesday, 6:30 Eastern, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts.
Salute. But yeah, I would say Minnesota behind McCarthy.
Well, what do you do with Sam Darnold?
Well, Sam Darnold is going to get a check from probably LA. I mean, from Las Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah, I figured.
Well, I feel like Vegas is going to try to get into the Shador sweepstakes.
But the problem is they're going to probably try to win some games, end up 7th, and not have enough capital to get to 2 or 3 or whatever they need to be. Or some teams is going to be. Dallas is going to be so bad for the rest of the year. It looks like Jacksonville is doing terrible. The Giants have basically given up. So there's Carolina's going to be just bad because they just don't have the talent. There's going to be a lot of teams that end up with. It's going to be a lot of teams in week 18 starting high schoolers.
All right. So let me ask you this. Is it too soon? Is it? Oh, word. Hey, we found the smoker. Listen,
that boy believes in what he believes in. He ain't gonna change. That's one thing about Floyd. I tell people like, can you help us with him? I can help you with this. He ain't gonna change.
So do you think? Let me ask you this. So like I said, we're going with he's on a team to the end of the season. He's a free agent at the end of the season.
He goes.
So could you bring him to Carolina to replace Andy Dalton? Could you bring him to Indianapolis to replace Flacco? Could you bring him to Cleveland?
He has to have some value. I just don't know exactly what it is because it could be a situation where we might have to see Brian Daboll try to make it happen with another quarterback. And then we can look and say, maybe Daniel Jones wasn't the problem. Maybe it was Daboll's antics on the sideline, slamming his helmet and all this other stuff. Like the week they didn't sign a kicker when their kicker was on the injury report all week. Stuff like that. So I think maybe he's like, you know what, I think that's probably why he was like, yo, they had him playing scout team safety. He's like, let me get up out of here.
Yeah, GM gotta go. Like
GM's gotta go.
They told Daniel Jones, come out here and be Scott Frost.
So I can see him going. If I was him, if it doesn't cost me any money, like if it's like you don't have to give me your money back to the Giants and they still got to cut you a check if you sign with another team, I sign for the Russ, like a minimum, whatever amount of money that's the minimum for the rest of this season, and get on the staff with a prolific passing offense to where over the next however many months he can learn the breaking down of like how you break down because what Tua is doing with that, his lack of arm strength for him he was like leading in pass rating and passing yards last year before injuries and everything kind of kicked in, or like the weather changed and everything else. But he was
Daniel Jones can't go somewhere and be a Taysom Hill.
No, I wouldn't want to do that. I want to go and just like get me somewhere where I can get some information, get some knowledge. And then when all these quarterbacks are moving around and everybody wants to get to top 5 to get a Shador or Quinn Ewers, and they end up in a position where it's like, do we take Carson Beck or do we just sign Daniel Jones and take the best offensive lineman available? Like, just get yourself in a room, get yourself some good workout tapes, some good Instagram video, get with the quarterback, passing coach, whatever. Do your due diligence right now to audition for your next job because you're paid. It's not like you're hurting for money. I know New York, New Jersey, New York taxes are killing you, but it's like you got at least $32 million left.
Cleveland is my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That Deshaun deal, man, they're not getting out of that.
Well, no, but that's the thing. I'm not trying to find a place for him to start. I'm just saying like a place that where he could be because like I wonder because they can't get rid of Deshaun. But with Jameis doing the things that he's doing,
Jameis won't be a starter anywhere else, though.
No, I know, but
I
was going to ask you, with the success, relatively speaking, that Jameis is having, is that a situation where the fans are asking for Jameis, so you don't re-sign him or you ship him, whatever the status of his contract is, just to get rid of that?
I think with Jameis. And why I don't think Daniel Jones, I don't think it'd be a smart move. If I'm Daniel Jones' agent, I'm like, don't go up there and compete with that guy for the admiration of an organization. Because Jameis has it.
Right.
Jameis has the perfect attitude for a backup. He has the perfect temperament for it. And he has the perfect amount of charisma for it. I don't think Daniel Jones can come in and usurp that. So it's
can he go to last one, and then we'll move on. Can he go to New Orleans? Because we were talking about it, right? Like they could come off of Derek Carr this year.
Yeah, but I'm not coming off of Derek Carr to go to Daniel Jones. I could see him he could go to the Chargers and sit there and learn on a hardball and get back to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to go somewhere this year where he can learn the stuff that he was missing this year.
Okay.
And then figure out the shuffle. Because right now I don't see anyone making him a starter because based off the tape that he put out there right now, I think opposing AFC quarterbacks have more touchdown passes in MetLife Stadium than he has. It's I think the Chiefs, they said the Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls since the last time he's thrown a touchdown pass at MetLife Stadium, and he plays 8 games a year there.
So, the Giants didn't want him anymore, but I bet you the 49ers could use him this weekend. Brock Purdy out.
Debo running a Wildcat.
Brock Purdy out. Bosa out. Trent Williams questionable. Center questionable. Javarius Ward is still away from the team. Man, and this was one of those weeks. This was the game where the season was on the line. You're going into Lambeau. Get some rain, get some snow. We saw what happened in Cleveland last night. Run the football down their throat. And now it's all up in smoke. So is this the end of the 49ers as we know them?
The fact that they're all still under contract and I don't think anyone's on IR, this year they have a chance. I don't really see many teams in the NFC running away with it. Detroit looks like they're running away with it, but then you had Jared Goff that had that 5 interception game a couple weeks ago.
That they won.
That they ended up winning, that they shouldn't have won. But that's because Houston has offensive line problems in their house as well. You got Philly. I think people are still kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop with Philly. They figure Sirianni's going to do something. There's going to be 2 games where he keeps going for it on 4th down and goes for 2, and they lose when they could have taken points early. It's going to be something like that is on the precipice for Philly, and I think people are kind of waiting on that.
So if that happens,
I don't really think many teams have pulled away. So
if that happens, do you think that fractures Philly?
I think it just brings them closer. Because right now I think Philly's sitting at what we got them at 8-2, or they had their bye in there at 7-2.
I think they're 7-3. Let me double check that real quick.
So I think Philly gets a couple of wins. Yeah, then they're gonna pull away, but
yeah, they're 8-2. Yeah,
8-2. So you would need a couple of bad weeks from Philly. Maybe you pull off this miracle this weekend against Green Bay. I'm not seeing it likely, but maybe Jordan Love has the yips from the NFC.
Well, hey,
last year
he's tied with Patrick Mahomes for the NFL lead in interceptions right now.
Yeah, so he throws a bad pick late, and you go up 2 possessions. Just one of those those grinded out games. But without all the Avengers, as Nick Wright likes to say, is tough. But I don't think they're done because their quarterback's young. They're gonna pay him. They'll be done if they pay him $62 million. That
might be the problem. I don't know what they're going to pay him, but I would imagine
they better hope he takes a Mahomes deal. 10 years.
Well, we talk about the market, right? We talk about the market being reset, and this is what the market is at this time and point. Well, Dakota took the market and wiped his ass with it.
Yo, but that was Dallas's fault. They could have done that in March. They could have done it in March for $52 million.
Oh, we're not 49er fans. We're not 49er fans. We're just having a conversation. You know, but what about after the season though? Like is there some reconstruction? Because obviously Ayuk is coming off an injury, you know, next year. He's coming off an injury. You got Debo to make a decision on possibly because you're paying both of them.
I think the bookend Super Bowl windows. So you had the Jimmy Garoppolo 2019-2020 season, or 2019 season. That Super Bowl, I think they probably held onto some pieces. They gambled and tried to get Trey Lance to like, listen, we have this core players. We're not paying that much money. I think Jimmy Garoppolo's contract was the highest. And then after a couple of years, it became like a medium level for your top starter quarterback. So I think they pushed all their chips in and then got lucky on the river when Brock Purdy just landed in their lap, and that gave them a couple more years. So they probably should have pulled the trigger on Debo or Ayuk this offseason and gotten some pieces. They've gotten like either some draft picks and developed some of the young players that they had, because now when you go in off season, because Debo's not coming back next year. He's been in trade rumors for 2 consecutive off seasons.
Fighting with the long snappers.
It's just it's gonna be time.
And you drafted Pearsall.
Kittle. You drafted Pearsall. You're gonna be able to keep Kittle, but I don't know if Kittle's gotten his big deal yet, and if he's willing to take the Kelce deal. Because I think Travis Kelce in Kansas City doesn't get a great. I think his deal is like 16 or 17 million. So if you can keep
Kittle is on a 5-year, $75 million extension.
So if you can keep him at that and keep him happy there, move Debo, elevate some other guys, then I think you'll be fine. Get some defensive players back. But you can't do it if you're paying Brock Purdy 60-something million. So I would say for this year, I mean, it's a long way to get around. I think this year, I think they're fine. It all depends on who they sign and how they make their moves in all season, because Debo shouldn't.
He wasn't eligible yet. Yeah.
Debo is, you can't put him on a trading block for 3rd year in a row and expect him to come into training camp super motivated. Wow. Cause like, especially it's going to be the Saquon thing where you're jerking one guy around and then you're going to pay another guy 10 times what I'm getting with like that. So yeah. So Brock, that's what Residente is talking about. So Brock wasn't eligible. Oh yeah, I knew they weren't going to. I knew they couldn't sign Brock.
Yeah. Okay.
I was just saying, like, it's like they could have moved. I think the wanting to get back to the Super Bowl, you keep everyone together, but looking at it, they still put these guys on a trading block. It still was a lot of turmoil. And I was thinking to myself the whole offseason, how do they have this many problems losing the Super Bowl by 3 points? If Nick Bosa stays home and tackles Patrick Mahomes, they win the Super Bowl. Do you still have all these problems this offseason with guys wanting to leave, getting traded, and not getting paid, and things getting dragged out? Did that 3 points really impact their forward thinking that much? Because if that's the case, you might want to go clean slate. Because it felt, their offseason felt like they got blown out in the first round of the playoffs. That's what it felt like. It didn't feel like a team that was up in overtime and a 4th down stop wins in the Super Bowl. Like, it just felt like the vibe was off.
All the air was out of the building. And you know, and I guess that comes with the territory, because Shanahan is Das Wonder Kid, you know, and he came from Atlanta, helped Atlanta get to the Super Bowl. We don't need to go into what happened in the Super Bowl, but, you know, he came there with expectations, and you get to that point twice. You lose to the same team, different players, but same team, same quarterback, twice. And both times, part of it was due to you abandoning what got you there in the first place. So I think that he came into this season not getting fired or like not on the hot seat or anything like that. But I just think going back to what you were saying when we were off camera, the media, certain hype, certain expectations that the team hasn't met because of injury, though. So that's the saving grace, is that the 49ers aren't out here just getting beat on. They've been hurt.
Dre Greenlaw doesn't tear his Achilles running back on the field. They win that game easy because Mahomes went right over his head for 2 touchdowns where he should have been. Mahomes is like, whoop, your backup's in there. I'm throwing it right where you would have been.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had to keep Fred Warner on Travis Kelce for the rest of the game. So he was out of the picture just because that one injury. Like I said, and they still were up 3 points in overtime.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the key to most of this is going to be how much are you going to get out of CMC, and are you going to preserve CMC? Because you got a guy named Jordan Mason who was 3rd or 4th in the league in rushing. CMC came back. Where Jordan Mason at? We talked about this in the Super Bowl. He had what, 20 carries.
He had
80 yards rushing and 80 yards receiving. So he had all these carries. He had all these catches. Where was Elijah Mitchell? Now you got Garendo, who, as Residente will have might just be the fastest dude in the NFL. So now this is what we get used to, right? Because Seattle won a Super Bowl when Russell Wilson was wet behind the ears. The Legion of Boom was able to save the day. Russell got paid. There was no more Super Bowls. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen to the 49ers per se. I'm just saying that that's what happens more than not.
If you track the Super Bowl.
I look at the Bengals right now.
I think if Atlanta would have sealed the deal with Matt Ryan that year, it would have been one of the few teams. I'm not saying like no teams on it, but it's like it's been a few teams where the quarterbacks had like 30 or 40% of the cap or something like that and still won a Super Bowl. But with Atlanta, they had like 4 rookies playing defense that were like starting. Like Deion Jones is out there. The guy has a podcast now.
The safety, Keanu Neal.
Keanu Neal was a rookie. Yeah. Then you had like the nickel corner was a rookie. I think Grady Jarrett was on a very early deal. And everybody was playing like they were playing like the Legion of Boom, but they were paying them like they were paying like there was like the Legion of your local neighborhood. Yep. Like they were paying them nothing, so they could pay Sanu and Julio Jones and Matt Ryan.
Right.
But like I said, they were fortunate to have a team full of rookie defensive players. But yeah, the 49 it's just
injuries.
It happens to everyone. It's part of the salary cap, and I think as long as they keep their heads as far as like the leadership piece, because you can start over and keep the same coach. I know like the argument's always like if you're gonna get a new quarterback, get a new coach. That's not the case. Sometimes you can just need a player. New players come in.
Well, I feel like last year
4.35s and who are measured 6'1", 6'2" that can play safety. You might have to get rid of a guy. You just have to just be honest and not halfway do it. Like don't pay half the old players and keep the young. Like just do it. Don't be like the Houston Rockets. Draft all this young talent and pay all these old guys.
I feel like last year was an unusually healthy year for the 49ers. Injuries are usually, what gets in their way a lot of times. Now, obviously, they've been able to overcome it in the past. But, now, like you said, that we got a different landscape right now. The whole division is 5-5 minus Arizona right now, who's a game up. The 49ers at this moment are 1-2 or 1-3 in the division. They just lost to Seattle. So, they've lost to Seattle, Arizona, and the Rams. So as far as that goes, they're in trouble.
Yeah, that puts them deep in the rabbit hole.
Right. So now, maybe you can get a wild card because as you look around, Tampa's 4-6, but we talked about their easy schedule. Washington I don't know what's going on with Washington right now. They're just hitting the wall.
And then Atlanta at 6-5. And I think even if Atlanta slips, I think they're still probably shooing for 9 wins right now, sitting at 6.
And Minnesota's not as good as their record, but I don't think they're going to fall apart to be 9-8 to give you a chance. So, it is what it is. But so speaking of this weekend, speaking of the 49ers, do we got to go there? Brandon Allen getting the start, 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions in his career.
Yeah.
Arkansas's finest.
Let's see, as the game of his life, I'm going to take Green Bay.
Well, I think that the 49ers can still try to run the ball down Green Bay's throat, just from the standpoint, there's going to be some weather to consider. So you don't necessarily need Brandon Allen to come out there and be Brock Purdy per se. But I'm gonna pick Green Bay too. I'm gonna call it something along the lines of 20-16. I think the defense will keep it within reach. But maybe there's a turnover late.
When you have a quarterback, and like Shanahan is probably not gonna limit what he does. I can foresee like a really bad interception by San Francisco, just like one of those. I thought Kittle would be here, like one of those things where like Brock Purdy would know to wait for this to happen,
right? To
get the ball here, and he's gonna be like, "Oh, this is the route." He's gonna try to throw it in here, and there's gonna be the guy underneath picking it off and taking it to the house. Something as simple as that.
But the good news is you're playing against a coach that well. You coached with him. You've coached against him many times, to include playoff games.
But that guy has all his horses.
Right, but he has all his horses. But one of those horses likes to give the ball away. So I'm just saying. But yeah, I'm going to take Green Bay in a close one. We got robbed. San Francisco, the number 2 total offense. Green Bay, number 4. I wanted explosions.
Yeah, you
got to settle for some other shit.
About to get 23-10.
Yeah. Well, let me jump around a little bit because let's talk about the Hard Bowl. You got the brothers going up against each other. The Chargers hosting the Ravens on Monday Night Football.
You think the dad is giving advice?
I don't know. He can't.
Who would he give advice to?
Whichever one is the younger one.
No, but I'm talking about who needs to hear coaching advice this week.
It's definitely John.
Okay,
it's definitely John because I don't understand. So the Ravens are 7-4. So 11 games, if my math is correct, right?
Yeah.
So out of those 11 games, Derrick Henry, and I don't know if they're trying to save him for the playoffs, but he's only had 20 carries 4 times. He's had, 4 games of 16 carries or less. So I don't know. And part of that is Lamar cooking. Being the MVP.
Like they're not even getting blown out. It's like that stat normally is reserved for a team that's down double digits, for the whole game. They just stopped giving them the ball.
I worry about teams like Baltimore and Pittsburgh because I wanted to pick Cleveland last night, but I didn't have the balls to do it. But so from that standpoint, like when teams like Baltimore and Pittsburgh play each other, I have to imagine that takes a toll. Into your next game. The good news is they get the extra day. But you're also
real quick. I like hearing that. I like this conversation. Do you really think that the AFC North as a football conglomerate, those 4 teams are more physical with each other than the rest of the league?
I just think that Baltimore
just like this hyperbolic, just this aura that hangs over the
No, I just think that Baltimore and Pittsburgh is the best rivalry in the NFL. And
I get it, but I don't think it's tougher. I just think that I don't want to say it's overhyped. I think it's overblown.
Well, I don't know if it is. Not for the AFC North. Not for the AFC North, but in general, because I haven't checked it lately. But up until Detroit played the Titans, every team that played Detroit lost the next week. We hear about college football. This was years ago, obviously. But you play Alabama, you might lose your next game.
So college football, Alabama is substantially bigger than most.
No, I know, but I'm just talking about the energy exerted, the physicalness, the wanting to beat this team. Those two that's the best rivalry in football to me. And
I think I think what happens, and the reason that Cincinnati loses, the reason Cincinnati and Baltimore lose to Pittsburgh is because everyone approaches a game like we don't want to lose this rivalry game versus we're just going to play this game.
And
Lamar
and
can
John
play
Harbaugh.
every NFC team. He's like 23-2 against NFC teams. They're just as tough and big and strong as Cleveland, but or Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But he's like 1-4, 1-5 against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but you also been wanting Harbaugh to get fired since the COVID year.
I don't want him to get fired. I just don't understand why they approach games like they don't have a definitive advantage. I think, yes, they're more physical, but like I said, once again, I don't think it's like they are that much bigger and stronger and they hit that much harder in that game. I just believe they all play it tight. There's nothing that Baltimore has to worry about if they play a game against Atlanta at 1:00 on Sunday, Monday Night Football, Thursday night. If they're playing a game against Carolina, New Orleans, a game against Green Bay, there's no chatter all week about how important the game is. It seems like these division games, they over chatter, they oversell it to the point where I think they just psych themselves up. You think Jameis was psyched? No, Jameis was chilling.
Jameis was just trying to survive the snow, but you know what I'm saying? For you sickos out there, pick 6 San Jose State, 7-3 San Jose State over UNLV early in the second quarter. Boise's watching that game. But yeah, so anyway, back to the point though. So did the Chargers turn a corner last week? Now I know Cincinnati's not a juggernaut. They may not even be a good team.
Same passing defense problems as Baltimore. So
but you and I had the conversation about Justin Herbert, and it took a few tries, but he made the play late that was necessary to try to win that game. So
17 for 36 is rough though.
Yeah, that is rough.
17 for 36.
That is rough. But you know what? I'm picking them to beat Baltimore because, I'm tired of Baltimore. They don't deploy their personnel in the right ways. Like, I don't know if it was you that said it, but I was talking to somebody that made me think, it was actually Dallas Mike, where Derrick Henry's in the game, what's going to happen. Was it you? Okay.
I said it's me.
As soon as Justice Hill come in the game, what's happening.
It's not a stretch play.
Right.
I don't know why they do that. Like, if I can see it from my house, like, that's the part that blows my mind. Like, we talk about these coaches.
And the Chargers have also given up the least points in the NFL this season. Now Lamar Jackson, I expect him to come out and play better than he did against Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh just seems to have his number when he's available to play against them. But I'm going with the Chargers, man.
I'm gonna go against what I was thinking because I was thinking Chargers as well. I'm gonna give Lamar a shot, like the same when they played Dallas. I was like, I just picked him because there's no way he's gonna go 0-3. Like, there's no way the Ravens are gonna be 0-3.
Right, but remember we were talking about Georgia. That runs out at some point. Like, we keep giving these teams these benefits of the doubt of you just lost. There's no way you're going to. It happens.
7-4, and before kickoff last Sunday, he was number one in probably every MVP poll that matters,
and still
even
should
in our
be.
Conversation. I wish Joe Burrow was winning more games.
And that's another thing I don't like either. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a 17-game season. There's going to be bad games within a season. We don't have to change the MVP every time somebody has a bad game.
Honestly, I see like Mahomes is on it, but I think it's not just based solely off of stats. I think it's like partially stats and partial like just conversation,
popularity contest. Whoever was in the ballots before the season started, because just like last year, we saw this. Dak was the MVP one week. They lost at Miami. Tua became the MVP. Then they lost. Purdy became the MVP. Baltimore destroyed them on Sunday night.
Yeah,
Lamar wins the MVP. They were just playing process of elimination, and it sucks. But give me the Rams over the Eagles in an upset. Because the Rams are at a point where they need this game. They got their weapons back. It's been a few games, so I think it's time to take off. I've been hearing all week, that back in, was it 2018, the year that the Rams played the Patriots in the Super Bowl, that season, they played Vic Fangio on a Sunday night, his defense, and it destroyed McVay. And now, this is McVay's revenge. I'm not
Okay.
even taking that route. You know, the Eagles are 4-1 on the road, so that's great. Jalen Carter was in the backfield against Washington as if he knew the plays. So they're going to wreak havoc. The Rams are going to have to work for this. But they also got Jared Verse, Braden Fisk on the other side, Kobe Turner coming through. So their defense has been playing better in the last couple of weeks.
They're stout up front.
Yeah.
I
I'm
just
taking
think
the Rams.
I think Saquon will get 22 to 24 touches. Like
Well, it don't matter because Jalen Hurts going to steal all his damn touchdowns anyway.
They say he's gotten to the 1 yard line 9 times, and pretty much if a touchdown occurred, it was Jalen Hurts. I think one time it was like a turnover and downs. Or something.
Yeah, and Residente was like, "Yo, why don't they just put Saquon in the Wildcat and do the tush push with him?"
You don't want to mess up that quarterback center chain, putting the running back there in that time. But yeah, I think he'll get the touches he needs. Unlike how Baltimore seems to kind of shy away from giving Henry the ball, like I think Saquon will get his touches. He puts them out there in wide receiver routes. I think he's going to put so much pressure on him. I think you still got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. I mean, you still have Jalen Hurts. That because Jalen Hurts is rolling out, he knows. I'm running this ball. I'm going to just keep doing the Mahomes pump fake, and then I'm going to run to get these 8 yards, get out of bounds, not get hit. He's doing a great job not taking hits this year. So,
okay. Well, you know, I'm going to clap it up for a second. Anthony Richardson did not throw a pick in his return last week against the Jets, but he fumbled twice. You know, they got Detroit coming in. The big bad Lions who put up 52 on the Jaguars last week.
How many trick plays from the line? What's the over-under? 1.5.
I say over.
Over? Me too.
I say over. I'm not going to do like last week and say that the Lions can name their score, you know, like I did with Jacksonville. But they're going to hit the end zone fairly often. You know, they're averaging 34 points a game. You know, Jameer Reggie Bush Gibbs averaging 6 yards a carry this season. You know, obviously the Colts have Jonathan Taylor as well. So, you know, we'll see.
That Detroit 1-2 punch is just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's exactly what you want as a 1-2 punch. A 230-pound bruiser back, and then like Deuce McAllister and Reggie Bush 2.0. Like that's if you have two backs, like you don't want Derrick Henry and Solomon Hill. I know we keep going back to that, but it's like I don't know if Jahmyr Gibbs is gonna run a screen, or is he going to get the stretch play the same way Montgomery would?
Or is he going to go over the top? You know what I mean?
Or is he going to come out on a wheel route and it's like he's one-on-one with a linebacker who has no chance of stopping him?
Yeah, and I expect Jameson Williams to have a 60-yard touchdown in this game too. Detroit's got some injuries in the secondary, but they're not playing against the quarterback that could take advantage of it. So give me the Lions.
I'll take the Lions as well.
Welcome back from your bye, Carolina Panthers. Guess what you get? The defending champs coming off a loss. Kansas City, big.
I hope it's big. I wanted it to be entertaining. Yeah, pause. I was like, I should have said, but I was like, you know what? Whatever. We'll deal with it.
Good point.
I want a vintage Mahomes game. I want the game where he lets the ball go and he just points because he knows Worthy's going to run under it. I want that. It's very entertaining to watch him play offense, like like that old, like that old Kanye. Like I want that old Mahomes game. I know this sounds kind of quirky and out of the box. I think they probably should have made a couple of phone calls, see if they could have got Tyreek Hill back from Miami, but that's neither here nor there. That time has passed. But I want to see that. I want to see Kelsey, that route he had in the Super Bowl where he got the drag route. And I just want to see the excitement on offense, because watching the Kansas City game where it's just a defensive struggle and it's 14-13 going into halftime and they're down, do
you think that Kansas City's on cruise control?
I don't think so. I think they're limited.
Okay.
And I think they're limited to their offense looks exactly how it looked last year. So that's 20 games of film of like, this is what happens when Mahomes doesn't have the deep threat. And it's not like he's lacking skill. It's just we'll play too high safety. and we will make you beat us underneath. Now, they don't have another. They can keep a safety close to Kelsey, or just man him up straight up with a safety, or put a linebacker underneath. They can bracket him all game long because Worthy doesn't really get open that well, and Diop is a possession wide receiver, a great one, but there's not a guy on their offense that you have to worry about after 15 yards. Like, guys that get open and Mahomes will hit them.
They could do that. I thought we were going to see Millville's finest this week, but it sounds like they're going to hold them out to Black Friday.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But the Falcon Killer is going to the black hole this weekend to play against the rival Raiders. Gardner Minshew in the house, with the last time they played, PS2 with the 100-yard pick six. I see more of the same. Brock Bowers will get loose. He'll get some catches, but give me the Broncos. Give me the Broncos by 2 touchdowns.
Me Riley Moss get an interception.
Yeah, he got one last time too. Gardner Minshew was in a giving mood that day. But then the game that I'm looking forward to, the game that I want to see, because the Arizona Cardinals have a chance this week to stranglehold the division to some degree. Because, for example, if San Francisco does lose, if the Rams do lose, and then they got Seattle themselves, they could go up 2 games on everybody. And they've already beat the Rams. They already beat the 49ers. And they would have Seattle in their pocket too. So they would have tiebreaker over everybody in addition to having the best record in the division. Now, the Seahawks are feast or famine. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like
now,
too often it's too close.
So when I thought about this game, I said, man, it's so hard to win in Seattle. That's such a great home field advantage. They're 2-4 at home this year. DK Metcalf is obviously back. Seattle can't run the ball. They can't stop the run. James Conner leads the league in broken tackles, 68 of them. Kyler Murray, they're coming off a bye. And at some point this year, I'm going to get you to apologize to Gannon, because you were talking about how he can't motivate those guys.
That speech. Listen, season 1 on Call of Duty Black Ops 6 just came out this week. So Kyler Murray probably had plenty of time to play. Now he's ready to study. So, I give him a shot. I'm taking Arizona just because, like I said, I think Seattle is living on the edge. And some teams can live on the edge consistently because they can win. A couple years ago with the Minnesota Vikings, and they were like 7-1 and 1-score games.
Yeah, went 13-4. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Kansas City Chiefs this year, just able to piece it together, coach, quarterback, defensive coordinator. Seattle doesn't have that yet. What they have moxie and they have grit, and that probably stems from their quarterback just kind of having this roller coaster ride of a career, now being locked in as a starter in Seattle. But you can't have these roller coaster games every week, especially in division. They had one with the Rams where they moved the ball. They were inside the red zone. They went for it on 4th down, got stopped, came right back. Matthew Stafford rolled, caught a one-handed. Robinson caught a one-handed touchdown. So it was they were on the verge of at least going up 3 and overtime. Or if they would have called a better play on 3rd down, they probably would have got the 1st down. So it's just that up and down part is just so they had their up last week. I'm going to go and call the down for this week against Arizona.
Yeah, and I mean, and the positive for Seattle is, Jackson Smith and Jigba is starting to break out, I think. So I expect this to be a shootout, but you said it earlier. Kyler Murray's a playmaker. So that's what I'm trusting. So then, I don't know what to do with this game. It's a division game. The Purple People Eaters against going up into Soldier Field, the Monsters of the Midway. I don't know what to do with this game. All I know is Brian Flores is going to spin Caleb Williams' head around But at the same time, Sam Darnold, that pumpkin has wilted.
Yeah.
So, so the Vikings have a good record. I don't know if they're a good team.
Good as Caleb, a record, yeah.
Do you know the last time Caleb Williams threw a touchdown pass? This is week 12. This is week 12 we're going into.
He didn't throw one against Washington.
He did not.
I think I had a parlay on DJ Moore maybe a couple weeks before that. So I'm going to say 2 weeks before the Washington game.
Week 6. So it was halfway to where we are right now. So he hasn't thrown a touchdown in his last 6 games. DeAndre Swift with a groin injury slowed down a little bit.
How does that happen?
The offensive coordinator got fired.
That's a strange stat to me, especially for a guy who starts and throws as many passes as he does.
But that's what we were talking about earlier. Like, you got a young quarterback. You got to run the football to open up the passing game instead of just giving them the keys and saying, go win us the game. Because he is a rookie, no matter how talented he is. He's a rookie. And you know what? I just talked myself into it. Minnesota's going to put their dicks in the dirt. Pause.
What's the pause count right now? I think we're up to like 6.
I'm going
to take Minnesota. I'm taking Minnesota. I'm going to pick against Chicago. Not because
every week.
I'm gonna pick against them every week until they show me what they do well. Because
they play defense well. That's why I want to give them a chance, because as many turnovers as they could force out of Caleb Williams, Sam Darnold can turn it over too.
Yeah, you can play defense well, but if you have an inept offense, eventually it won't look like good defense. I mean, you got to have something. We talk about those old Colts teams that were just always undersized and they weren't great defenses. But the Colts can get you 34 points, 35 points, in those shootouts. They can win those shootout games. Even in a defensive struggle, Chicago, they can't rely on the kicking game. They can't rely on,
they don't run the ball enough.
They don't run the ball enough. They can't rely on passing concepts. They don't have a hurry up.
They got to worry about DJ Moore throwing a fit.
I honestly, I don't know if it's being reported or anything like that. If anyone's really checked in on their off the field or locker room relationship, because it doesn't seem like he rides for Caleb at all. If it seems a lot like he's out there running cardio and it's getting.
He ain't gonna ride for no rookie that tell you to clean the locker room either.
He probably said, "Come on, guys, let's clean up the locker room."
All right, Cowboys at Commanders. I don't know why. Actually, I do know why. I'm still nervous. I know Dallas got injuries on the offensive line. I know Dallas doesn't have a quarterback. I know that their tight end may not play.
Turn the cameras off, man. Just me and you talking here. We're not on the live podcast.
Hey, you talking to the guy that had to sit through some wide rights. I don't trust nothing.
Listen, stop talking like that on Soldier Boy's internet. Dallas is in the same boat as Chicago, essentially. And it's not Dallas's fault. It's you just don't have the players available.
All I know is
players you can put under a salary cap era sport is only so many top tier players you can have. And every single top tier player from Dallas, aside from CeeDee Lamb, isn't it Michael Parsons and CeeDee Lamb?
All I know is when I was an impressionable young man, Dallas went 1-15. So then, Dallas is minus 11 in turnovers, so that's a good thing. But maybe this is what Washington's offense needs, because over the last 4 games, they're averaging 8.6 points less than they were their first 7 games. So this might be a get right spot. Was that?
That was after the rib, right?
Yeah, that was after, and that's what I'm saying. I think he's still hurt, and then I saw his hand.
There's nothing you can do. I've never cracked a rib, knock on wood, but I knew a guy who crashed a go-kart.
Yeah,
at a shop outing, and that was the first time I ever heard. He was like, "Yeah, I went to the clinic, and it was like, yeah, there's nothing we could do for a cracked rib." I'm like, "What do you mean there's nothing they can do?"
You just gotta let it heal.
He's like, "I can't put a brace on." He's like, "I just gotta take shorter breaths." So
yeah. And then I saw his hand last week with the whatever that was, like the big
Did he
old
get stepped
nod or
on?
whatever. I don't know what it was, but so there's no harm in losing to Philly. There's no harm in losing to Pittsburgh. So this is not a time to panic. It's just a time to win.
Yeah, Cooper. And the thing that Washington has going in their favor, and unfortunate for Dallas, like, because listen, people talk all the shit they want about Dallas Cowboy fans, call them obnoxious, whatever. They haven't won anything for whatever. For whatever it's worth, they are ride or die for their squad. Even when they're cussing Jerry Jones out and they're cussing you out for talking about their team, they're all over the place. They rock with their team. It's just they don't have two starting offensive units or starting units, NFL units. The defense is hurting, offense is hurting.
Yeah.
Best you can do is hope that there's some missed tackles, some calls go your way, unfortunate, untimely turnovers by Washington. But since that doesn't really happen in NFL games that often, it's not like in NIU Notre Dame thing. It doesn't really happen to where NFL teams just fall apart when they have such an advantage. And I don't know what the spread is, but I imagine it's probably something respectable because
I thought it was NFL 10 or 11 when I last looked. It was something along those lines. It's 10.5.
10.5. So that's tough. Yeah, they're gonna get their ass kicked.
34-17 if they can get 17. I assume we're both taking the Texans over the Titans.
Yes.
Okay. I assume we're taking the Bucks over Tommy DeVito unless you want to go with this New Jersey, New York pizza story.
Nah, but I might check out the ticket prices and the weather.
Okay. Okay. And then finally, Pats and Dolphins. You ready for this one?
You got a stat for me that's going to sway me?
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I like picking New England just because.
Because you don't like your money?
I mean, it worked out for me.
Week 1?
No, it worked out a couple weeks ago. It was close last week. It was close last week.
When they beat the Jets?
Yeah.
No, but here you go.
That one.
Here you go. The Patriots, since 2013, are 2-9 at Miami. So there's a trend for you.
Yeah.
With Green Bay and San Francisco left on this schedule, Miami can't afford to play around with these type of games. They need to come out and make a statement.
Yeah, they got to play in this warm weather.
Yeah. And remember, if you had any doubt or anything else, it is still November. It's not December. So give me the Dolphins.
Yeah, and if it's above 45 degrees in Miami, if it drops to 44, then at kickoff, give me New England. But if it's above 45, which more likely because of global warming, it will be, I'm going to ride with Miami.
All right.
Head over heart.
Well, you know what? That music can only mean one thing. It's time for upset alert. So I've been getting some confused people, because, I do the bets against the spread and then I do the straight up bets. So I'm going to change the wording around because people are like, what's the upset? Is it the spread or is it the straight up? So you know what? We're going to change it up a little bit. So straight up is just going to remain straight up. The upset alert is just going to be called full coverage. So these are the teams that are going to cover. All right, here we go. Give me Wake Forest to cover 25 at Miami. Give me Arizona to cover 12 at TCU. Give me Minnesota to cover 12.5 against Penn State at home. And the one that I may regret, give me Oklahoma to cover 14 at home against Alabama. Maryland to cover 6 against Iowa. And Pitt to cover 8 at Louisville. So that's your full coverage. Now let's pick some straight up upsets. Texas A&M. You're on the clock. You got Texas next week. Your coach is thinking about Texas, talking about Texas. But even before that, I said it the other day, give me Auburn at Jordan-Hare. Hugh Freeze needs a big win. Played Georgia tough last year. Played them tough this year for a half. 4th and 31. He's looking for that signature win, just like Lane Kiffin was a couple of weeks ago. So give me Auburn to cover the 2.5 and win outright at home against A&M. Give me, for the sickos out there, give me Marshall over Old Dominion. Sorry, Virginia. Give me, maybe a little bias, my Western Kentucky Hilltoppers straight up against Liberty. Sorry, Virginia. Give me Duke, the Blue Devils at home, Wallace Wade Stadium over the Hokies. Sorry, Virginia.
Yeah, you starting a theme here.
Well, Virginia's going to lose the SMU. Virginia's going to lose the SMU as well. So but no,
Maryland covering.
No, Virginia Tech's just falling apart. I think their coach. I think the job's on the line. Like, this team is just. You got people talking about quitting and preparing for the NFL, like all kinds of stuff going on over there. And the last one, Georgia Southern over Coastal Carolina, that is, on the green field, the teal field. And before we get to the big games that we're going to talk about, it's time for scenario clinching. So we got some conferences out here. There's not a lot of conferences that can be won this week, but we're going to go through it anyway. So in the American Conference, this is important because Army's playing Notre Dame this weekend. Army and Tulane have already clinched their spots in the American Championship game. The only thing we need to find out is where they're going to play. Because unlike the big conferences, the home team, they're the better record host. So, we'll have to see if Army loses a conference game or not. All right. In the ACC, the contenders are Clemson, SMU, and Miami. SMU puts themselves in a real good spot if they beat Virginia this weekend. Remember, if it ends up in a 3-way tie, Clemson is the odd man out right now. Since they lost to Louisville, the other two beat Louisville. Conference opponent record. Right. So, Clemson can stay alive if SMU loses to either Virginia or Cal next week. Miami, they went out, they're in. But if they lose to Syracuse next weekend or Wake Forest, that opens the door for Clemson because Clemson is done with their ACC schedule. They finished at 7-1. They finished at 7-1. SMU's still undefeated. Miami got the one loss to Georgia Tech a few weeks ago. So if Clemson wants to bring the chaos or pray for the chaos, then what you need is Miami to lose, SMU to lose twice, or Virginia beats SMU and wins against Virginia Tech, and Pitt beats Louisville because Clemson beat both of those teams. SMU beat Pitt, but they would have lost to Virginia in that scenario, so that flips that whole tiebreaker. In the Big Ten, we got the big one this weekend tomorrow in Columbus. So, Oregon, and I don't know what the Big Ten is doing. You know what I'm saying? Like Mike and Lethal always trying to tell us how sports are rigged. Yeah. Oregon still has Washington next week. Got to get – the Big Ten just said Oregon's in the title game. Like, forget all your tiebreakers and stuff. Oregon's in. All right? Yeah. So, Ohio State, if they beat Indiana, they still need to beat Michigan. So it's not clinched all the way just yet. But they put themselves in a very good position. Penn State needs both of them to lose. Ohio State and Indiana. So they need, I guess, Indiana would beat Ohio State, and Ohio State would lose to Michigan, and then Indiana would lose to Purdue next week. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, so basically, for all intents and purposes, the simplest answer is the best answer. The winner of Ohio State, Indiana tomorrow will play Oregon. No, I don't have the whole state lose. I'm sure Virginia Union's going to win, or, like the Virginia Military Academy is going to win. You know,
Yeah. It's like Florida a couple of weeks ago when all their football teams lost.
yeah, there you go. We got precedents. You know, in the Big 12, we talked about could the Big 12 be left out of the playoff? No, but we just had a conversation. So this is where we are. There are 4 teams in contention. You have BYU, you have the Buffaloes, you have Arizona State, and you have Iowa State. The first 3 teams that I said, BYU, Colorado, and Arizona State, control their own destiny. The good news is BYU and Arizona State play tomorrow. So somebody might knock the other one out.
De facto elimination game.
It could be, because Colorado still got to win. And they're playing against the Jayhawks. We'll get to that later. But, you know, so Colorado has to win out. Arizona State or BYU has to win out. Iowa State praying for chaos. Now, as far as this weekend, if BYU wins and Utah beats Iowa State, BYU's in. So they can actually clinch this weekend if those 2 things happen. Colorado can clinch if BYU and Utah win. So BYU cheering for Utah somehow. Colorado's cheering for both of the Utah schools. You know, Conference USA, we ain't going to get too much into that, but, you know, Western Kentucky and Liberty this weekend. You got Jacksonville State and Sam Houston. Looks like it'll be either Western Kentucky or the loser of that game against Jacksonville State. In the MAC.
Go down to Orlando for the Meineke Car Care Bowl.
Yeah, the MAC is too confusing, so I'm not going to waste time. We'll talk about it next week. The Mountain West. Boise State is undefeated in conference. They have not clinched a spot yet. But if they win tomorrow against Wyoming, their last Mountain West game, they clinch their spot in the championship game. UNLV, who we're watching right now, trailing San Jose State 14-10, a minute and a half left in the second quarter. UNLV needs to win out and have Colorado State lose because Colorado State is undefeated in conference as well. That means they control their own destiny at Fresno State and at home against Utah State next week to close the year. If they win out, Colorado State against Boise. If they lose and UNLV wins out, we get a rematch of 2 ranked teams, Boise trying to strengthen the profile because UNLV is their best win, sadly. The SEC, I know that's the one everybody cares about. Yeah. The SEC, we got 6 teams alive. I didn't say 16. 6 teams are alive to win the SEC or to get to the championship game. They are as follows: Texas, Georgia, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Georgia has finished their SEC schedule. They're going to eat some little Debbies tomorrow and play against UMass. And then they play their rival Georgia Tech next week. Texas and Texas A&M both have 1 conference loss, even though you would never know that because the media don't talk about Texas A&M very much. You know, Tennessee has 1 SEC game left against Vanderbilt, who is, yes, the other team that beat Alabama besides Tennessee. Even though Tennessee is 4 spots behind Alabama in the college football playoff rankings. Alabama goes to Oklahoma tomorrow. They come home for the Iron Bowl next week. Ole Miss goes to the Swamp tomorrow. And then they come home for the Egg Bowl. So, everything being created equal. Texas and A&M both control their own destinies. If they both win this weekend, that opens the door for the winner of their game next week, Texas and Texas A&M, to play Alabama in the SEC title game if Alabama wins out. But this weekend, going on real quick, if Missouri loses their last 2 games, that's at Stark Vegas and that's at Arkansas. If they lose both of those, Tennessee beats Vanderbilt, Texas wins out, you'll get a Texas-Georgia rematch. There you go. Tennessee and Ole Miss.
Hold on. So there's a likelihood, like not even that doesn't even seem like a crazy.
It's not a likelihood. It's not happening.
Because how many people? Everyone has to lose in essentially the middle to get Georgia and
No,
Texas.
just no. The only team that has to lose out is Missouri. And they're both road games. Missouri's not very good, even though they're ranked. They're not very good. Tennessee has to beat Vanderbilt. We think that's going to happen anyway. Texas has to win against Kentucky this weekend and win at Texas A&M next weekend. So if Texas wins out, Tennessee beats Vanderbilt.
A&M beats Texas.
Texas A&M goes to the SEC championship game.
You have Alabama and Texas A&M in the SEC championship game. So Texas is a 2-loss team that at one point was number 1. They still get into the college football playoff.
I think they should not, but because their name is Texas, they probably will.
Okay,
and that's the state of affairs in college football right now.
That's interesting. I want to applaud you for the breakdown.
So yeah, we could get Texas Georgia. We could get that rematch if some other things happen, and then of course, lastly to finish it off, we got the Sun Belt in the East. You got Marshall, Georgia Southern, and here's one for you, Residente. James Madison is going to win tomorrow, so there's a Virginia team for you. Yeah, but those are the teams in the East, and in the West, you got Louisiana, Texas State, South Alabama, and Arkansas State. Louisiana controlling their own destiny. So there you go. But let's get to the games, because you know why we here. Because the Hoosiers are coming in from Bloomington, Indiana.
The Hoosiers are already out of the college football playoffs, according to all the pundits.
If Indiana loses this game, unless they lose on a last-second field goal, they lose on a Hail Mary, they lose on a safety, something along those lines, Indiana might find themselves at home. Because, to be honest with you, Indiana hasn't beat anybody this year. Michigan is probably their best win. And that was a struggle, but Michigan has a good defense. So you're going to struggle sometimes, look, can Indiana win this game? That's what it boils down to. Can they win? Yes, they can. Seth McLaughlin, Ohio State center, out for the rest of the season. They were already down Josh Simmons. So their best 2 offensive linemen are now gone for the season. Guess what? Indiana has a pretty damn good defensive line. What I need to know is, can Indiana secondary hold up to Ohio State? Because obviously Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, so on and so forth. Will Howard is not, and this might be the problem that bites Ohio State. Will Howard is not the best quarterback in this game, in my opinion, of course, because I think Curtis Rourke is an NFL quarterback, provided he can stay healthy. Will Howard
has more NFL weapons.
Well, that's true, and I guess when you go back and, you brought him up earlier, you go back and look at Mac Jones, like that works out for you sometimes when you got those weapons. They make you look better. Everybody's open, so, I don't know, but
wide open.
Wide open. So what I want to see, this game is going to come down to a couple of things for me. Number one, can D'Angelo Pons stop Jeremiah Smith, or at least keep him in check? We saw Ryan Williams against Tennessee, for example, get targeted 20 times. Tennessee held him to 8 catches. So you need a similar ratio for Jeremiah Smith in this game if Indiana is going to have a chance. Can Ohio State protect? Obviously, I just talked about their offensive line injuries, especially the one that just happened this week in practice, the center. So just saying, I think that Indiana has the better coach in this game. Sig Nasty coming over from James Madison.
He definitely has more support.
Yeah, Ryan Day is a good coach too. I don't mean that as an insult.
That's what I'm saying. Like sometimes,
I don't mean that as an insult.
That might be all you need.
But Jim Harbaugh said it best. He was born on third base and think he hit a triple. And you don't like the fact that he dyes his beard.
I don't like the fact he dyes his beard, but he was given he's given an opportunity. but I don't think he's been given the vote of confidence that he needs. Whereas Indiana's coach is like, you know what? It's 4th and 1 from midfield. We're 10-0, got nothing to lose. We're going for it. Whereas Ryan Day's like, let's just punt it away because they'll kill him. They will kill him for that.
I know.
They'll kill him for going for that.
I know.
And it not working.
But see, here's the problem. Here's the problem.
You need a little freedom sometimes to coach well.
Here's the problem. In college football, it's not about who you beat. It's about who you lost to. Because, I'm sorry, Residente, because if Ohio State loses this game, I'm going to ask the same question I asked about Texas. Why they in the playoff outside of their name? So, yeah, they beat Penn State. Okay. They lost to Oregon, so you're going to give them credit for that. Just like Boise right now, they're only in this spot because they lost to Oregon. But Ohio State ain't necessarily, you remember the beginning of the season? We were talking about it. Akron, Western Michigan, School of the Blind.
But essentially, that's how it always kind of shapes out. Luckily for them this year, Penn State's been more of a formidable opponent.
Right.
On the national scale, ranked high pretty much since midseason.
Yeah, so they're going to get in off of one win.
Yeah, we'll talk, and we talk about this all the time. Between most conferences have 2 top dogs and a third team that's a surprise. SEC tends to run with about 3 top dogs and then 1 like revolving 4th spot that's somebody always fills. So you have your Bama, Georgia, LSU, and then you'll have Ole Miss have a good year. Tennessee will have a good year. Florida will have a good year. So it's always like, it looks like 4 dominant teams, and they're like the 4th team is just different every year. But for the most part, these conferences have like 2 teams at the top. Most of their schedules are pretty much padded in a cupcake. They play Western Michigan. They play Akron. They play Citadel, one of these other schools. They all have the same type of schedule. They just need the other teams to not lose their BS non-conference games.
And here you are. You got a top 5 team. You got a top 5 team on a silver platter coming to your place tomorrow.
Yeah, they just haven't gotten that, but they were able to win those games. They never really were in jeopardy. But now, I think they have a little wiggle room. But like I said, they're Ohio State. They're going to fill the stadium.
So here's the question. Can G5 talent take down the best of the best? Because Cignetti brought a lot of James Madison players with him. But the good news is that means continuity. They know the system, they're experienced. They know what he wants. They know where to be. They know what to run.
Where offensive line or defensive line players? Did he bring a lot of skilled players?
He brought a lot of skilled players, linebackers, receivers, things like that.
That's the G5 difference. I think when Dion, I probably mentioned this before in the show. Dion did an interview when he still coaching Jackson State. He was like, because when he landed Travis Hunter, they're like, how'd you do that? He was like, listen, our skill players are on par with every other skill position. He's like, we just don't have the big boys in the middle. He's like, we can compete on the outside. It's just that we can't compete in the middle. If you can't compete in the middle, it's pointless to be good on the outside.
Right. So, and that's another team. And that's another team that Tennessee is looking at. Because if Ohio State loses this game, they're saying, we got the same resume as them. We beat Bama, lost to Georgia, lost another game. Ohio State would have better losses, though. So basically, long story short, you got the 2nd and 3rd pass efficiency quarterbacks in the country. I don't expect a lot of turnovers in this game, even though Indiana might need them to keep up. I didn't pick the Browns last night when I should have, and I wanted to. So I'm picking the Hoosiers. I'm calling for the upset. I'm taking the Hoosiers 34-31 to go into the shoe and break off their foot in Ohio State's ass.
Yeah, I want to go with you, but I'm not going to do that.
Oh, and besides, right? Indiana hasn't beat Ohio State since we were 8.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. 28 straight wins for Ohio State in this series.
George, the first George Bush was president.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
So then we're going to go
Bill Clinton.
So then we're going to go to Arrowhead Stadium, but we are not talking about the Chiefs. We are talking about the Jayhawks, who in back-to-back weeks pretty much put the first nail into Iowa State's bid for the Big 12 title. Last week, they knocked BYU out of the top 7 all the way down to 14 in the college football playoff rankings with a win in Provo.
Yeah.
Can Magic and Lightning
at home at that altitude?
I know.
That was a strange game.
Can Lightning strike in the same place 3 times in a row?
Well, this is probably the first time we've seen Deion in the hunted position this late in the season. Because like last year with Colorado, their season pretty much wrapped up. They were just kind of playing to advertise their program and recruit, and they knew they were building for the 2024 season. Shedor's playing like a top draft pick,
like a Heisman candidate.
Well, I mean, all quarterbacks for some reason default Heisman candidates. I like to say draft pick. I like that part better because I'm sick of all the quarterbacks being Heisman, but you know how I get down.
Right.
I like utility players, so I like Travis Hunter. What he's doing, playing, like 130, 140 snaps a game. I like the speed that Colorado has, and I think having Shedeur in the system at his age, the confidence of the team, I think having Hall of Famers on your coaching staff, I don't see them having a let up against a team that has like inferior talent. We talked about the Nebraska game. Nebraska was home, charged up game early in the year. Colorado had a couple of bad plays early. I believe Travis Hunter went out that game
for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he played.
Shedeur threw the pick 6.
And then Shedeur threw that pick 6. So I just think early in the year they took Nebraska's best shot, but they balanced out ever since then. Even the Kansas State game they lost, they had the lead. So I just think they're playing better in these pressure situations. And like Kansas is coming to house money. They're playing at Arrowhead or Jihad Stadium, whatever it's called. But we're calling the Arrowhead around these.
What?
It's like Jihad.
About to get us kicked off YouTube.
It'll be all right. There'll be a controversy. We'll go on the View and
Zuckerberg ain't down with that either.
Yeah, he'd be banning you. But yeah, like I don't know. I just think I think the way Colorado deploys a lot of different players throughout the game, they run like 3 or 4 running backs at you. They get big plays from the wide receivers on the outside. Then you have Wester, the speedster. You have
Will Shepherd.
Yes, Shepherd. So it's like the way they utilize their weapons is like you can't double everyone, and they're willing to give the ball. Like Shedeur at the goal line with that read option, they don't even know why they even think he's never tucking that thing. He's giving the ball to the running back and pushing him in the back every time. Inside the 6, Shedeur is not taking that ball and running into the linebackers. So don't even go for it. Just clog the middle because he's giving the ball to the running back, but any running back that's in there. So it's not a matter if it's the starting guy or the guy that was third string last year that they moved up to get second and first team reps. They're all getting the ball. Deion has them believing then they're running the college football playoffs, and I don't think Kansas is going to be able to derail that.
Do you believe? So Vegas is trying to talk to us because Vegas only has this as a 2.5 point spread. Kansas can win this game. Last week, Colorado run defense came to show up against Utah. Obviously, Utah was without their quarterback or quarterbacks, 2 of them. And they held Utah to 31 rushing yards on 30 carries. My guy.
That's a lot of effort. That's a lot of effort.
I know. My guy, Nakai Hill-Green, the linebacker from Michigan that transferred to Colorado, has been laying wood. Pause.
So,
Kansas is going to have to work for this. They do have Devin Neal. And I don't know if you saw this, but, I know you like to do the, the vibes and the feel of the team and all that kind of. So I watched him do his interview after they beat BYU last week, and I had a mythological moment. You know, they were talking to him, and they were like, you know, you could have left Kansas, you stayed, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, yo, this is family. This is all. Like, it was like if you weren't, if you cared about Kansas, you would be just like, wow, what a great story. And, you know, they're playing for bowl eligibility. You know, they're 4-6 right now. So they need to beat Colorado and win next week as well just to make a bowl. I love their head coach, Lance Leopold. Now, I know that they lost some close games this year. You know, that's the problem. You know, they lost 5 games that were just one-score games, very close, down to the wire. They beat BYU last week going down to the wire.
Yeah.
So that's turning around for them. I need to see this matchup because I don't know if Horn is playing. I know he's got the ankle sprain. So we'll see if he plays. But Wester, Shepard, and Travis Hunter are going to have their hands full with Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson. You know, that's one of the best corner combinations in the country.
There's been some chatter back and forth. Travis saying, like, they know they're going to have to double team me. Because Kobe was like, I've been waiting for this. I had it marked on the calendar all year. And Travis was like, you know you're going to double team me. You know you're getting help.
I don't think they are. I think they're going to start the game on an island.
And maybe that's what he wants. Like the same way, real quick, Dion, when they asked him, you know, what do you have to say to the Heisman voters who don't have Travis, you know, number one, he was like, I don't have anything to say to the Heisman voters. Like, I mean, if they can't see it, I thought he had it wrapped up week 2, but I ain't got nothing to say to them. I was like, you sly fox. Because he definitely was planting the seed of like, yeah, you should have him.
Trying to get that Nick Saban on.
Yeah, absolutely. But Nick Saban would be a little bit more direct. Nick Saban, he kind of did the little Nick Saban Affleck commercial thing. He was like, I thought the Heisman's supposed to go to the best player in the country. Travis is the best player in the country, right? Okay, next question. I was like, you slick. I mean, that's why he's my favorite. That's why he was my favorite player from the time I first seen him high step out of the tunnel. So like that kind of braggadocious thing. So Travis Hunter's like, no, you got to double team me. So now Kobe's like, nah, coach, let me get him on the island. And they get double moved one time. And Shador's like, thought you wanted it. So now, so I think those kind of mind games, I'm pretty sure it goes back and forth. They probably been in each other's DMs and, you know, talking trash, whatever, on Twitter and different, you know, social media formats. But I like it. I like the excitement. I like the excitement for football in the middle of the country because, you know, a lot of college football excitement, anything west of the Mississippi was all LA football. And then Oregon with the flashy jerseys. Having the Midwestern, you know, like Ohio State just being, you know, literally could potentially be eliminated from college football playoffs, and then having Colorado being high. I think it's just really good for college football. And as fans, I think we should relish it. People still shitting on it and hating and putting all these crazy comments. Like I talked about the Twitter fingers, but it's like, yo, this is like a dope time. You got 12 teams. It's going to be crazy. 4 teams going to be really upset. I think the Big 12 champion could really be the team that, you know, comes out of Boulder, Colorado. Like I like their chances. Or the team out of Provo. Either way, like I think it's all good that the expansion of the playoffs and its quality. BYU had a bad loss last week, but they're still 9-1. You know, and if they
I got BYU losing tomorrow, by the way, to Arizona State.
It's a possibility.
You know, out in the desert, you know, but I like Colorado. I'm taking Colorado to win this game. It's going to be close. You know, I said the spread was 2.5. They're going to cover that.
I'm taking that.
Yeah, they'll cover that. I'll call it 37-30. You know, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then, what's up, Yankee Stadium? You know, the Army Knights are coming through to play the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame, 14.5-point favorites, or 15.5, depending on where you look. So, I said this a couple of weeks ago. They played Navy, and at the time, I said, yo, Army's the better team. I think Army has the better chance to beat Notre Dame. I still believe that because Army should have a Heisman candidate. You know, he's been hurt, but, you know, people are making a mistake by revisiting the Navy game. and thinking that it leads to
beat
evidence of
Army.
what will happen tomorrow. I don't agree with that. I think Army has a chance to win this game. I don't think Army's going to win this game, but I think Army has a fighting chance to win this game. I give it 23% chance. I'll say something along those lines.
Yeah.
Notre Dame has hit a rhythm.
I like the ticket prices. They're not outrageous.
Yeah, Notre Dame has hit a rhythm. That defense is real. You know, Riley Leonard, I've been criticizing him. Can't criticize him. He's been playing well. And he's going to bring problems to Army. You know, so now what can Army do to stop Notre Dame? Army's defense is actually pretty good. But there's a guy by the name of Jeremiah Love running back for the Irish. He gets yards. Notre Dame's key to this game is to do what Army does. Hold on to the ball.
Hold the ball, run the rock, control the clock.
Yeah, and Navy, when you look at that Navy game, you also have to consider Navy had 6 turnovers in that game. You can't count on 6 turnovers against Army. But, you know, I'm gonna pick Notre Dame. I think it's gonna be one of those games where early we're sitting here and it might be 17-14 Notre Dame, and we're like, is this Northern Illinois all over again?
And it's in a Yankee Stadium, a nice stadium. West Point's not that far. Like it's their West Point, and then you just they bring all the cadets and they just all that government money. They're moving fans into the stands. It's a duty day for.
Does it count as a TDY?
Now it's a duty day. It's work. It's the same thing at Air Force. That's why I tried to get that job at the academy, because the game day was considered a duty day when you were at the stadium. So getting from South Bend to Yankee Stadium, but you know Notre Dame fans are everywhere. So I think
they got the subway alumni is what they call them.
I think the crowd will be raucous. Still a lot of tickets available. I'm looking. Some of them are crazy. I'm not, $500 for, but you got a couple of $250 tickets near down the third base. What would be the third baseline at Yankee Stadium, like $250 each. So it's nothing crazy. I mean, I don't know. I'll check the weather.
Right.
It would be a good game to check out. And turning a baseball stadium like Yankee Stadium into a football field is pretty. I know the walls are really close. I remember watching the games. Like it's very.
It's one of the shorter.
It's very close.
Yeah,
it's not like you can't miss long in the end zone.
Right.
Because your guy will run into a wall.
Right. So I'm gonna take Notre Dame 31-17. That puts Army right inside the number, so it's a cover. But Notre Dame, I think will put the game away late. So. And then, of course, before we get out of here, got some randomness for you. So,
what we got?
Mr. Logical. This statement is going to sound like common sense when I say it.
All right.
But when you think about the teams in the sentence, it still might go, what? So, Vanderbilt is a 7.5-point underdog going into Tiger Stadium tomorrow, Death Valley. LSU wearing the all gold uniforms that I surprisingly like. If Vanderbilt wins that game, they are guaranteed to finish higher in the SEC standings than LSU. So it sounds obvious, right? No, but it sounds obvious, right? Like if they win,
sounds odd. It sounds like I imagined, because I haven't tracked this. I imagine it maybe happened before.
What it do? Welcome. I
can't imagine. Like, how many times has that happened where Vanderbilt is finished ahead of LSU? Did you look that up?
No, I didn't look that up. It hasn't happened very much, I can tell you that. Yeah. I mean, even Jay Cutler was going 5-6 back then. You know what I mean? So, former Florida coach, and current Central Michigan Chippewa coach, Jim McElwain announced his retirement. So, salute, coach. This is sicko moment. The Treasure State, Big Sky Country. Tomorrow is the Brawl of the Wild. The Montana Grizzlies going to Bozeman to play the Montana State Bobcats. Montana State undefeated, won last year. Grizz, get it together. That's my squad, if you ain't know. I'm a Grizzly fan. If you don't believe me, I'll go grab my keychain. You know what I'm saying? I got the Grizz logo on my keychain. All right, so we talk about Florida State. 13-1 last year, 1-9 this year. Playing against
doesn't make any sense.
Playing against 1-10 FCS Charleston Southern tomorrow. But let's put FSU to the side for a second. Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State had the Doak Walker Award winner last year, Ollie Gordon. They made the Big 12 championship game last year. They started this season 3-0. They are 0-7 in the Big 12. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Mike Gundy can...
Wait, hold on. So you brought up Florida State's 1-9 record and be like, it's bad, but it's also bad for Oklahoma State.
I'm doing that thing that people do. Y'all talking about this, but y'all ain't talking about that. You know what I'm saying? Mike Gundy got the big 0 in the Big 12. You know, I'm just saying. They got Texas Tech tomorrow.
With that Boone Pickens money, you should, with that kind of money available and the Texas talent that you have right there, you should never be 0-7. Like that's a lack of something, either lack of coaching, a lack of that family that Neil talked about with Kansas. It's a lack of something for you to lose that many games when you have competitive teams. It's not like you're at a disadvantage. It's not like you're an FBS team that moved up.
Well, I mean, you're still second in your state, regardless of Boone Pickens' money. You ain't getting recruits over OU.
Listen, but he's a billionaire. I don't need more than one.
Well, Boone Pickens ain't alive.
Somebody's getting that. There's an endowment. There's something he left. There's some kind of money he left. They probably using it for other stuff, but he left something to Oklahoma State. I can guarantee you that.
But no,
he left something in the trust.
But Mike Gundy, they play Texas Tech tomorrow at home, and then they close at Colorado next week. So, you know, could we be looking at 0-9? You know, continuing on, I got my eyes on you, Trojangelis. You know, for the new followers and subscribers out there, that'd be USC. They got Deshaun Foster tomorrow. And just in case you were wondering, that game is taking place in L.A.
In L.A., where USC and UCLA
they are. Yes.
In Southern California.
The game is at the Rose Bowl.
Where it never rains.
So all I'm going to say, Lincoln Riley, keep playing with fate if you want to. Because they got Notre Dame coming in next week.
UCLA, like, I think about this. That stadium, I've been to that stadium. I think my son was a year old, so it was like 14 years ago for 4th of July. They can't get a new stadium because that stadium is so historic.
So iconic, yeah.
They can't get a new one. And it's old. I think we're sitting in bleachers.
Right.
I don't think we're sitting. I can't recall if we were sitting in chairs, but there's definitely a lot of concrete, a lot of bleachers. Very old looking. It looked like a really big old high school stadium. It was nice. It was dope because it's the Rose Bowl, you know, then they have, but they're gonna be like the Trojans, but at least the Trojans got their stadium kind of like, it's iconic. It has an Olympic, they had the Olympic pitch. Like all you have there is a Rose Bowl football game, but it doesn't look like much was there.
So USC is favored by 4.5. You know, so I bet at the start of the season, nobody thought it would be that low. But Lincoln Riley, don't lose that game because you got Notre Dame coming in next week. And I know he's got the high buyout and everything, but I'm just saying.
And he lost his recruit to Dion.
That's what I'm saying. You know, I'm just saying. So, okay. Then I think that might be all of my notes for today. You know, so yeah, it's odd that we're already here. You know, like I said, Army and Tulane already clinched their spots in the conference championship game against each other. We just have to figure out where they're going to play. You know, see, that's the other thing about the G5, you know, is that You got the Big 12 championship game at Jerry World, SEC championship game at the Compressor. You got the ACC championship game in Charlotte, usually, sometimes Orlando. You got the Big 10 championship at Lucas Oil. And then you got the Sun Belt and the AAC, and I guess the Mountain West too, playing home games for their conference championship.
Listen, you might have to be a little thrifty.
I think you got to waste money.
You got to have it.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, if you're the AAC, why not play in the Superdome?
Because I don't think your brand fills it.
But I think that business, to some, business comes with risk, obviously.
If you get
especially you get an Army too.
But you need a sponsor. Who sponsors there? Because it's the Chick-fil-A SEC championship game. I believe they sponsored. I know for years that was like the game. So you need like one of these major notable corporations to sponsor your championship game and get them to foot the money for the stadium, because the stadium has to be decked out in their advertising, because that's where your cash comes from.
Right.
I don't think it's the schools making the decisions like, hey, I want to play at Jerry World. It's all the advertisers that Jerry probably already has a business deal with that can put either their logo superimposed on the field for commercial breaks on that big screen or just around the stadium.
Right.
That's part of the hook there. So I think playing an extra home game and just getting that local money for the vendors and the parking and everything else, just playing your game wherever wherever your team is probably the best for when you're, especially Boise.
Yeah, but they do get a Friday night 8:00 Eastern slot on ABC for their conference championship game.
Yes, that's probably the most you can ask for, and just try to maximize whatever cut you get out of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I can't find anything right now.
And like I just would just try to do like Boise, like their whole blue turf. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it was their idea first. I know Eastern
Washington has the
red field.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which was first.
And then Coastal has the teal field. There's a team out there I can't remember right now that has a purple field.
And then I believe maybe Boise was inspired by someone, because I remember watching like one of those ESPN clips on it, but I believe they were inspired by somebody else's idea to do it. And then someone at Boise was like trying to figure out, how do we get on the national scene? And they were like, hey, I got this great idea. And people were like, no, that looks ridiculous. It won't look great on TV. And obviously they convinced them to make it happen. But that was the idea, was like, we are trying to get on TV. We're a small school in Idaho. Most people couldn't point out Idaho on the map. So let's just swing for the fences and see what happens. If not, we got a cool looking blue turf. And if it doesn't work, you tear it up and you go back to the regular stuff and you press on with your life.
Right.
But that opportunity, I think that led to more. I don't know what other colors you could do. I can't imagine the team doing a black field.
No.
I don't know how that would play unless you play with like a deliberately light color ball. Because I was like the Houston Texans, those balls that CJ Stroud throws around, they look as dark as your jersey you have on when I see it on TV. So I don't know, pause what they're rubbing his balls with, but it looks a lot darker than a normal football.
Well,
so
all I know is LeBron James need to donate some money to InfoCision Stadium.
Man, listen, you put the kids through college. I'm not here for the football program.
Hey, but they ain't getting good grades. They failing all the tests.
Everybody failing these tests. These tests are stupid. They're trying to keep up with these foreign kids who have a completely different curriculum. It's like, cut it out. Teach what we need to know here. We need taxes. We need childcare. We need real stuff here. Everybody not gonna be an engineer.
Hold up, what?
What's that? DeAndre Jordan Jordan show I hear
The
nothing but
the Mountain West Championship game sponsor is Old Trapper.
Is that the beef jerky?
Yeah.
They selling that much beef jerky?
I guess so.
The Pelican Stills playing the Smoothie King Arena. I didn't realize they were making that kind of money.
Right. No,
'Cause
that's true.
I walk past Smoothie King all the time.
You know, the Sun Belt is sponsored by Hercules Tires. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is nuts right now. I'm having fun
Hercules
with this right
tires.
now.
All right. Fun fact of the day, real quick. The Michelin star rating. The
Uh-huh.
reason it's called the Michelin star rating is because people weren't wearing out their tires on the cars when they first started making cars and people started traveling because you used to work and live in the same area. So people weren't traveling. So Michelin decided to go to restaurants out just outside of towns
Uh-huh.
and then tell people in the town 20, 30 miles away, like, hey, this is a great diner in this town. So people would drive back and forth long distances to get to these rated restaurants because they would send these pamphlets. So you live in San Antonio, they would
Mhm.
send you like pamphlets for a restaurant that's like 35 minutes outside of San Antonio. So you have to drive back and forth and wear out your tires, hence the Michelin rating. So the Michelin star 1, 2, 3-star rating, that's where it came from.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was Michelin. For some reason in my mind, I thought it was like an Asian, like we took like an Asian word and just kind of Americanized it and like associated with food because of like the high end foods out of like a lot of Asian cultures, like Japanese food tends to be like really high end sushi, stuff like that. So I was like, oh, but then I saw that. Ooh, that's a bad fall. But yeah, Michelin rated is from Michelin selling tires. They wanted people to drive and work their tires off. So they were like, oh, this is a great diner 45 minutes outside of your town.
Or I will have you know that the MAC championship game is sponsored by Rocket Mortgage.
That seems fitting.
And they just they extended another year to have their championship game at Ford Field.
But like that's real. That's banking money.
Mm-hmm. But I'm sure they don't fill it. You know what I mean? But yeah. So like I don't know, like because the AAC back when they had UCF, Cincinnati, and the gang, they would say instead of Power 5, they would be like it's the Power 6. You know, because they were the 6th power conference. So that's why I figured like you market yourself. Like the Pac-12 isn't there no more. You know what I'm saying? Like run with that. Be the Power 5 and run with it. You know what I'm saying? If you and to your point, you know, you're absolutely right. They're not going to fill it, but the way that I look at it is nobody going to take you seriously if you don't take yourself seriously. You know what I mean? Like you I mean, it's all marketing and advertising, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's the Power 5. We're playing our championship game at, you know, the Superdome. And this year, like I said, it's Army and Tulane. So Tulane got the local fans because it's New Orleans. And then, you know, Army would bring cadets, you know, or whoever. Like, so you wouldn't have necessarily got 100%, but you might have filled it up 65 to 70%.
Yeah, I think you need. I don't think NFL stadiums like their stadiums being on TV not full.
Right. You know what I mean? And
they don't want any kind of association with, you know, something that
mediocrity.
looks like mediocrity or failure. So they're like, if you're not like the original 4 teams for the college football playoffs, I believe I was talking to you about. I was talking to either you or my pops. So I said I talked to you guys about Sports Live. I remember when they said they were going to this 4-team college football playoffs and the championship, the bowl games ahead of it were going to be at NFL stadiums, obviously, because like the State Farm Stadium out in Arizona, that's what it used to be called, State Farm Arena. They were getting games, and then Jerry World was the first team, and it's like the first championship game, and every championship game, subsequent game was going to go to the highest bidding NFL stadium. I'm like, Jerry Jones is going to have his thing as much as possible. There's going to be Jerry Jones is going to get it. Atlanta, New Orleans, maybe Miami.
They took over the Cotton Bowl. at Jerry World. So yeah, so that's going to be a championship game at some point, I'm sure. I think it already was, but
yeah, they'll get back around to it.
Yeah, so it is what it is. So 9 minutes and 33 seconds left in the third quarter. San Jose State 16, number 24 UNLV 13. So if UNLV loses this game, that might open up the door for that Boise Colorado State Mountain West Championship game, brought to you by Old Trapper. At the probably at Boise, I'm guessing. But yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been Sports Reports as Ordered. We love you. We will see you next week. Tuesday, we'll be back. We'll figure out Thanksgiving and all that. As far as, Friday, maybe we'll only do one episode. We'll see. But like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. That is the Even Kill. Mr. Logical, and in case you didn't know, he represents the Garden State. 2-5 down here in the Alamo, the Lone Star State. We love you. Enjoy your football. Have a great weekend. Happy turkeys if you eat those. I'm eating crab legs. Peace.